Sometimes all it takes is one night to change the way you see everything. You meet someone maybe by accident, maybe by destiny, and for a few hours, the world feels like it's holding its breath. Every word feels lighter, every look feels louder, and suddenly you realize how powerful connection can be. It's easy to believe that deep connection comes from time, from years of shared experiences, long conversations, and consistent presence. But sometimes life reminds us that moments can carry a power that time can't measure. You can spend years around people who never truly see you, who never reach beyond the surface. And then in one fleeting encounter, maybe just a few hours, someone makes you feel understood in a way you didn't think was possible. That's the beauty of real connection. It's not built on calendars or clocks. It's built on emotion, attention, and honesty. It's the energy between two people when both are fully there, not distracted, not pretending, just present. When someone listens not to reply but to feel you, when their words land exactly where your heart needed them, that's when a moment becomes something unforgettable. Sometimes it's the silence that speaks louder than any conversation. The glance that lingers half a second longer than it should. The laughter that breaks through your guard. In those tiny seconds, you realize connection isn't measured by how long it lasts, but by how deeply it touches you. That's what makes certain nights impossible to forget. They remind us that one genuine moment can mean more than 1,000 ordinary ones because it showed you something real. There's a kind of magic in the moments that take you by surprise, the ones that happen so quickly, yet leave an imprint that lasts far longer than logic can explain. You might share a few hours with someone, a conversation under dim lights, a walk where the world feels quieter than usual, and somehow it all feels more meaningful than years spent beside people who never really reached you. It's because depth doesn't come from duration. It comes from presence. When someone shows up fully, their attention, their curiosity, their vulnerability, even for a short time, it has a way of sinking deep into your memory. You remember the tone of their voice, the way they looked at you like you were the only person in the world for that moment, the rhythm of a shared silence that felt safe instead of awkward. Those moments remind you that it's not how long you've known someone that defines the connection, but how real you both allow yourselves to be. The heart doesn't need time to recognize truth. It only needs honesty. One night of openness can leave more of an emotional echo than years of guarded conversation. That's why the briefest encounters often linger the longest, because they were fully lived, fully felt, and never diluted by pretending. There's something rare about being truly seen, not in the way people look at your appearance, your job, or your social image, but in the way someone looks straight past all of that and sees you, the real you, the you behind the smiles you give when you're tired, the you behind the strength you show when you're hurting. When that happens, it's disarming, because so much of life is spent performing, trying to be enough, trying to be interesting, trying to seem fine. But when someone suddenly meets your truth without judgment, it feels like the world slows down. Their presence tells you you don't have to hide here. And for a moment, you breathe differently. Being seen like that doesn't need grand gestures or dramatic words. Sometimes it's just a quiet moment, the way someone notices your silence and asks if you're okay, or how they pick up on what you didn't say. That's real connection. It's not about someone fixing you. It's about someone understanding you. And that understanding brings a kind of peace that's hard to describe. Because when someone sees you for who you are, not for what you give, or what you look like, or what they can gain, it reminds you that you're worth being known. That's the kind of moment that stays with you long after it's gone. There's a quiet truth about moments that don't last. They often leave the deepest marks. We're taught to value things by how long they stay, as if permanence is the only sign of importance. But sometimes the things that fade are the very ones that shape us most. A conversation that ended too soon, a night that slipped into memory, a feeling that didn't have time to grow. These can still hold a beauty that time can't take away. When something is temporary, it demands presence. You feel everything more intensely because somewhere deep down you know it won't last forever. The laughter feels louder, the silence feels softer, the details, the way someone looks at you, the warmth in their voice, they all burn a little brighter. You hold on tighter because you understand that this is it right now, and that makes it sacred. The truth is, not every connection is meant to go on forever. Some are meant to wake us, to open our hearts, to remind us of what we're capable of feeling. And even when they end, their meaning doesn't disappear. The memory becomes a quiet light inside you, proof that something real happened, even if it couldn't stay. Regret has a way of clouding beautiful memories. When something ends, a connection, a night, a moment, our first instinct is to wish it had lasted longer or to wonder what we could have done differently. But sometimes what you shared wasn't meant to be permanent. It was meant to teach you something. Every brief connection carries a message about who you are, what you need, and what you're capable of feeling when you let your guard down. Instead of mourning what didn't last, you can choose to see what it revealed. Maybe it reminded you that you still have the capacity to open up even after you thought you couldn't. Maybe it showed you the kind of energy you want in your life or the kind you no longer need. These moments aren't mistakes, they're mirrors. They show you the parts of yourself that come alive when you feel seen, desired, or understood. Holding on to regret keeps you stuck in the past, trying to rewrite something that was already perfect in its imperfection. But when you release that, you begin to appreciate what the experience gave you, not what it took. Every fleeting connection, every goodbye, every almost love carries a quiet wisdom. It's life's way of whispering, you're still capable of feeling deeply. Don't close your heart because something ended. Open it because something real happened. Love is one of the most misunderstood experiences we go through as human beings. So many people think love is about holding on, about claiming, keeping, possessing, but that's not what love truly is. Love isn't about ownership, it's about awareness. It's about seeing another person as they are and letting that recognition awaken something inside you. Love doesn't have to last forever to be real. It just has to be felt fully, without fear, without the need to control it. When you love, even for a moment, you're reminded of something powerful, that you are still alive, still capable of feeling something genuine. In a world that constantly numbs us with noise, distractions, and expectations, love is the heartbeat that brings us back to ourselves. It's that sudden rush in your chest, the warmth in your stomach, the way your breath catches when someone's words reach a place in you you didn't even realize was closed off. Love reminds you that beneath all the armor, there's still something tender, something human. It doesn't matter whether that love lasted a night or a decade. What matters is what it awakened in you, because love at its core isn't a transaction, it's a reflection. Every time you open your heart to someone, you discover another piece of yourself. You learn what you value, what scares you, what kind of connection you crave, and what kind of peace you're searching for. Even when it doesn't turn into a story with a happy ending, it still adds a chapter to who you are becoming. Sometimes the people who come into your life briefly are the ones who leave the most lasting marks. They arrive not to stay forever, but to show you something, maybe about love, maybe about yourself. You might meet someone who makes you feel alive in ways you hadn't for years. Someone whose energy reminds you that love isn't supposed to feel heavy or complicated. Someone who makes you laugh without effort, who listens without judgment, who makes you remember that connection doesn't have to be hard to be real. And even if they leave, what they gave you doesn't disappear. It stays with you, quietly shaping how you love the next time, how you open up, how you understand what your heart deserves. That's what love does. It leaves echoes. Every heartbeat shared with someone, every conversation that made you feel safe, every glance that carried more meaning than words ever could. Those are reminders that love is not lost, only transformed. People may walk away, situations may change, but the feeling they awakened in you remains. It becomes part of your emotional DNA, part of the map that guides your future connections. There's a softness in realizing that love doesn't belong to you. You can't own it, and you can't force it to stay. You can only experience it. That realization can feel painful at first, because we've been taught to equate love with permanence. We believe that if it ends, it must not have been real. But that's not true. Some of the truest forms of love are the ones that never had the chance to last. They were too pure, too honest, too unguarded to survive in a world that measures worth by time and titles. When you love without needing to possess, you love with freedom. You stop trying to mold the other person into what you need, and you start appreciating them for what they already are. You stop fearing the ending, and you start valuing the moment. You realize that the heart's purpose isn't to trap someone inside it, but to expand every time it feels something true. And maybe the greatest lesson love teaches is this. It's not about being chosen, it's about being awakened. When someone makes your heart beat a little faster, when they remind you that vulnerability is still worth it, when their presence makes you believe in connection again, that's love doing its job. Not as a possession, but as a reminder. A reminder that your soul still recognizes beauty, still yearns for meaning, still dares to trust even after being hurt. There's a quiet kind of strength in loving without needing to own the outcome, because it takes courage to give your heart knowing it might not be held forever. It takes maturity to appreciate a moment without demanding it turn into forever. And it takes self-awareness to recognize that even if the other person leaves, the love you gave was still real because it came from you. Every heartbeat shared with someone leaves an invisible mark. You may not notice it right away, but over time you begin to realize that those moments, even the ones that ended, changed you. They softened your edges, taught you patience, deepened your empathy. They showed you how to listen better, how to care more, how to let go with grace instead of resentment. Love, even when it's brief, refines you. It carves away your defenses until what's left is something raw and honest. That's why love shouldn't be measured by its length, but by its depth. Did it make you feel something real? Did it open your eyes to a part of yourself you'd forgotten? Did it make you more human? If the answer is yes, then it mattered, whether it lasted a night, a season, or a lifetime. We often think of love as something we need to find out there in another person, another story, another chance, but sometimes the love you experience with someone isn't about finding the one. It's about finding yourself. It's about remembering that your heart is still capable of softness, still capable of risk. The love you feel for another person often mirrors the love you've been longing to feel within yourself. That's why even unreturned or unfinished love can be beautiful, because it shows you your own capacity. You loved without conditions, you felt without guarantees, and that means something. Every time you love, you prove to yourself that you still believe in connection, in hope, in the possibility of something extraordinary. So when you think back on someone who made your heart race, who made time stop for just a moment, don't focus on the fact that they're gone. Focus on the fact that they reminded you what it means to be alive. They were a mirror reflecting your ability to feel deeply, to care without limits, to give without fear. That experience doesn't fade just because it ended. It becomes part of who you are. Love, in the end, is a reminder. It doesn't belong to anyone, not really. It moves through us, changes us, and teaches us. It's the heartbeat inside the memory, the invisible thread between two people who may never meet again, but are forever changed by the connection they shared. Because every time you've loved, truly loved, the world inside you expanded, and that expansion doesn't disappear. It stays pulsing quietly, whispering that no matter what you've lost or how many times you've been hurt, your heart still knows how to feel. So when you look back on that one night, that one heartbeat, that one memory, don't see it as something you lost. See it as something that found you. It found you when you needed to feel again, when you needed to remember that your heart still beats for something real. Because every connection, no matter how brief, is part of a much bigger story. The story of your becoming. Some people are chapters, some are sentences, and some are just a single, unforgettable line, but every one of them adds something to who you are. The point was never to make everything last forever. The point was to feel it fully, fearlessly, and without apology. To let that moment remind you that you are still capable of deep emotion, of giving, of receiving, of loving. And when the night ends, when the heartbeat fades and all that's left is the memory, hold it gently, not as a wound, but as proof that for one fleeting moment, your heart and another's spoke the same language. Because in the end, that's what makes us human, not how long something lasts, but how deeply it moves us while it's here.